God bless. This is Brother Darren, Hebrews 9 verse 27 and John 3 verse 16. Just doing a bit of reading in regards to the so-called Prophet Muhammad and some goings on in regards to divination and consulting a familiar spirit, which were prohibited by Yahweh in the Bible. And this divination and this consulting of a familiar spirit was actually performed by, I think, maybe the Quraysh tribe and also Muhammad's grandfather to actually save Muhammad's father. Now, why I think that's very important is because when you deal with the occult, it opens up certain doorways. And I always wondered, how did Muhammad have this vision in this cave of an angel that later on they interpreted as being as Gabriel? And it's quite funny because even that story of it being the angel Gabriel, for that revelation to basically come, I believe that Muhammad had to consult Waraka, and I believe Waraka was supposedly of Christian origins, and he seemed to imply that it was Gabriel. And it's funny because it was also said that Gabriel visited Moses, but Moses was never ever seen in identification to actually see Gabriel. So there are a lot of alarm bells going off for me already. But, back to the matter at hand. So, Muhammad as well, from another hadith, I believe. I don't know whether it's a strong or a weak hadith. Muhammad sat on both thighs of, I believe it was Khadija, his wife, to be able to see the spirit that he was having conversation with, and he could see the spirit on both occasions that he sat on both thighs. But on the last occasion, I believe Khadija took off some part of garment on her costume and revealed a private part to the spirit, and the spirit left. So because the spirit left, that was their way of testing the spirits, and they believed that the spirit was righteous just because it never looked on her righteous part. Because it never looked on her private part. But nowhere in scripture, when we read Deuteronomy 18, I believe it is, for the test of a prophet, do we ever find anything like that for a test of a prophet. Also, they say that I believe a mole on the back of Muhammad's back was also supposed to be the seal of prophethood. Yet again, nowhere do we find that at all. But let's get back to al-Muttalib, who was the grandfather of Muhammad. And I'm just going to go down through this. He was a chieftain of a Hashim clan, I believe it says. But basically, it said that he was sleeping in a sacred enclosure, and he dreamed that he was ordered to dig at the slaughter place of the Quraysh between two idols, Isef and Naila. There he would find the Zamzam well, which the Jurum tribe had filled in when they left Mecca. Now, the Jurum tribe apparently were a tribe that previously had, they kind of had rulership over the Kaaba, and they took all the idols, apparently. They were ousted by the people of that area of Mecca. But they were supposed to have thrown either treasures or idols down the Zamzam well. apparently Muhammad's grandfather has gone back to this Zamzam well and was digging. The Quraysh tried to stop him digging in that spot, but his son Al-Harith stood guard until they gave up their protest. After 3 days of digging, Abdul-Muttalib found traces of an old well and exclaimed, Allahu Akbar. Some of the Quraysh disputed his claim to sole rights over water, but in the end they allowed him to keep it. Therefore he supplied pilgrims to the Kaaba with Zamzam water, which soon eclipsed all the other wells in Mecca because it was considered sacred. So the Zamzam well was considered sacred. He was ordered to, in a dream, to find this Zamzam well, which was between two idols. And the other treasures were supposed to have been thrown down this Zamzam well. But there's also this account here which says that Abdul-Muttalib's only son at the time he dug the Zamzam well was... it says Al-Harith. But it says that when the Quraysh were trying to stop his digging, he vowed that if he were to have 10 sons to protect him, he would sacrifice one of them to Allah at the Kaaba. Later, after 9 more sons had been born to him, he told them he must keep the vow. The divination arrows fell upon his favourite son Abdullah. The Quraysh protested Abdul-Muttalib's intention to sacrifice his son and demanded that he sacrifice something else instead. Abdul-Muttalib agreed to consult a sorceress with a familiar spirit. So Muhammad's grandfather saw a sorceress, consulted with her, as well as being involved in divination, and that allowed his favourite son Abdullah to be spared. Anyway, the sorceress told him to cast lots between Abdullah and 10 camels. If Abdullah was chosen, he was to add 10 more camels and keep on doing the same until his lord accepted the camels in Abdullah's place. When the number of camels reached 100, the lot fell on the camels. Abdul-Muttalib confirmed this by repeating the test 3 times. Then the camels were sacrificed and Abdullah was spared. So, to summarize, Muhammad's grandfather and the Quraysh tribe were already involved in pagan practices, divination, and also consulting, sorceresses with familiar spirits. As a result of that, Muhammad's father, Abdullah, was spared from being sacrificed. And, of course, later on we know that Muhammad's father obviously produces Muhammad. So, the Bible blatantly says not to consult familiar spirits. I believe that's in Leviticus and even Deuteronomy. And definitely not to be involved in divination. Because once you do those things, you open doorways or gateways. And clearly the spirit that revealed itself to Muhammad as Gabriel was a lying entity. It had nothing to do with Gabriel. We just know that even from when they try to assume from Hadith tradition or whatever else that Moses saw Gabriel, when it's never identified like that in the Torah. And then the test is a very perverse test for them to believe that spirit was a righteous spirit. Anyway, I haven't seen much of this really sort of discussed in terms of Muhammad's grandfather and how his father came about, and basically the spiritual doorways that were open to Muhammad. It's known that if you delve into the occult, doorways are opened and spirits can come through and can affect your children. So, I just thought that was quite astounding to find out all this information. Maybe it's been brought out at Speaker's Corner and others have shared it, but very interesting. God bless. Brother Darren, Hebrews 9 verse 27 and John 3 verse 16.